Okay, so today we're finishing chapter 48 out of 53 chapters of Tanya. The topic of chapter 48 is to understand we are in the middle of the few chapters that we're in the middle of is understanding that we're reciprocating the love of towards Hashem, the love that He gives us. We're automatically reciprocating. You know, when someone showers you with love, automatically you're going to shower him with love back. So, and we're seeing different ways of how Hashem showering us with so much love. And why now we're seeing that Hashem He's infinite, so infinite, and had to go through a contraction to be able to come so low to us, for us to be able to feel Him a little bit, because His light is so intense that we would not be able to have any contact with Him. But He had to give up a lot of Himself, not completely, but to a certain extent, and contract Himself to be able to come down. And that contraction is what we're talking about in this chapter. And in the next chapter, we're going to talk about how we're reciprocating that type of love. So as we're explaining that contraction, we're also explaining what happened to that light. It's a light that's called an encompassing light. And we saw last week that it's encompassing, which it doesn't mean that it's above us and that it's just like surrounding the world, and that it's not, but it's actually penetrating the world. But the reason it's called encompassing and not filling up the world, but it's surrounding us, it's because for us, the receiver, we're not grasping it. So because we're not grasping it, it's called an encompassing light because of the receiver's part. But for Hashem's part, He is inside and filling up the whole world with His light. So now we're going to continue. I'll start with a little story for you to understand what the topic of today is. There was a businessman that came and stayed in a very fancy hotel. Actually, the story is told by Mashpia Rabbi Mendel Futiyafas, for those of you who know. Anyways, this businessman stays in this very fancy hotel, and he was always locked up in his room. Like no one ever saw him. Like maybe once in a while he would go out. To eat and come right back and stay in his room. And every time he would come out of his hotel room, people would see him with a little notebook, and he would write stuff down inside. That's all. He would always be writing something in his little notebook. And it's been like this week after week. And by the third week, there was something really weird that happened. He was inside his room, and people heard huge screaming and crying, like something crazy happened in that room. So the people that are in charge in the hotel, they went in the room, and they opened the door, and they saw the man lying down on the floor without unconscious. So they realized that something really crazy happened. So they involved the police, and they had investigation come and figure it out. And they tried to wake up the man and try to bring him back and understand what happened. And once they were able to have a conversation with him, he explained, yeah, someone's coming in. It's okay. It's okay. They know where to come in. Everything's open. The man is telling the investigator, okay, here's what happened. It all happened 3 weeks ago. I bought myself a ticket to the lottery ticket. Shalom, shalom. I bought myself a lottery ticket, and I was sure that I'm going to win. And I already started thinking, what am I going to do with all this money that I'm going to win? So I started writing everything down. So I actually rented the hotel room, so that in order to be able to plan my next steps with all the money that I'm going to be winning. We're talking about the man that he played in the lottery. Victim. Okay, but he's already sure that he's winning, and he rented this hotel room to start planning what he's going to do with all this money, and he's writing everything down. And it's like after 2 weeks, I came to a conclusion that the best is to invest in buildings and houses. And I sat and I started, writing what type of houses it's going to be, how many floors is going to be in every building that I'm going to build. And all of a sudden it came to my mind like a real big problem. What's going to happen if someone is going to buy one of those apartments in those buildings that I'm going to build, and is going to want to hang a picture on the wall and he's gonna make a hole. He's gonna make a hole in the wall. He's gonna damage. He's gonna damage the wall with this nail. So when I saw that damage, I screamed and I fainted.
It sounds like me. My mind gets.
Like his mind really went far. So the investigator was listening to him like, wait 1 second, I really don't understand now. If you already won the lottery and you already have so many houses and so much land and all that, that's not what do you care about a little hole in the wall? It's not it's not a reason to is that a reason to faint? So he's like, so this man answers to him, everything you're saying is true if I would have the money in my pocket. And if I would have all these houses and I would have all these buildings. And I would already, and it would really happen. But the problem is that right now I don't have anything. And everything is in my head. And I want to ask you a question, my dear investigator. If they would put a nail in my head, I would faint. If they would put it like that nail, it wouldn't be in the wall, it's in my head because I'm like everything's in my head right now. So the question is, where is this nail hitting? Is the nail hitting the wall, or is it hitting his head?
Both.
So this really tells us that there's a big gap between where the person's thoughts are and the reality. There's a gap. Sometimes, you can think about a nail in a wall, and that's just inside your head. Nothing's happening to the wall, and there's no nail. There's nothing around. It's just a thought. Okay?
But
just like that, yeah.
You explain like that our thoughts interpretation in the next word, like only the thoughts can be an actual mindset in the next.
So the thought can influence stuff, but while the thought is happening, it's just a thought. It's not okay. Don't worry. That's a little bit of what we're going to be discussing today. The purpose of today's class is to understand that there's different types of thoughts, different types of knowledge, different types of understanding, and there's a huge difference between a human being understanding, a human being's knowledge, versus Hashem knowing something. We're going to see that when Hashem knows something, it's very different than when we think about something. Hashem thinking about something and us thinking about something, it's very different. So, as I said, this class is a continuation to what we spoke about last time, about this light that is encompassing. It's an encompassing type of light. And we said that it's not to the T that it's encompassing, but really, it's actually, the light is in every single item in this world, is in everything, but it's not revealed. We're not seeing it. We're not grasping it, but it's there. The reason we're saying it's encompassing is because we're not perceiving it and we're not seeing it because it's not revealed. So, so the thing is, sometimes it's very easy, like for us, we're saying encompassing and we tend to think that it's like surrounding and it's not like really there. That's why the author of the Tanya here is going to bring a real life example. Okay, he's going to really bring us to understanding what a thought is. And he's going to explain to us that even though, like when you look at a comprehensive like knowledge, like when something you understand something, okay, when you understand something fully, it can include all the details. Like you can fully learn something, fully understand something, fully plan the whole building. You can plan a whole thing, understand something fully with all the details, but it still stays, that knowledge stays theoretical. It doesn't create anything practical of its own. Like the fact that right now I'm thinking about something doesn't mean that it exists. It doesn't mean that it's there. It's just a thought, okay? And it's not like that thought is very theoretical and it doesn't apply itself in a physical way, okay? It can influence one day that it can become something physical, like you have your planning, it can become. So what we have here is we still have two separate things. We have the person that knows and we have the piece of knowledge. There's the human being and there's the knowledge. It's two separate things. When a person thinks about a nail, it's a theoretical nail in his head. It's not a physical nail in the wall. It's not. It's the fact that I'm thinking about a nail, it doesn't mean that somebody's banging a nail on the wall. It doesn't mean that it's actually happening. versus when Hashem knows something or thinks about something, it actually becomes a physical reality. Hashem thinking something makes it physical, makes it so Hashem and the knowledge is one. Hashem thinking something and that actual thing is actually one. It's not two separate things. Hashem is in it, and we'll explain it further to understand it. Well, that's what we're going to be explaining today. But so far, you understood the concept of having us being a person and the knowledge is separate from us. That's all you need to know so far. Let me just show it to you inside. So let us make this more intelligible by means of an example. He's explaining this, that encompassing light. When a person, look how he explains, it's very cute. When a person forms an image in his mind of something that he has seen or sees, even though the entire body or essence of that thing, both its exterior and interior and its very core are completely mirrored in his mind and thought, for he has seen it or is seeing it in his entirety, this is expressed by saying that his mind encompasses that object completely. And just as the mind's frame of reference, so too regarding the perspective of the visualized object. And that thing is enveloped by his mind and thought. But it is not encompassed in actual fact, only in the imagination of the man's thought and mind. Okay? So as much as you know all the details, it's still staying theoretical. It's still two separate things. So now we're going to understand further, what does it mean that Hashem knows what's happening in the world? What does it mean that Hashem knows and it's actually physically happening? We need to understand this concept because you'll see that it will give us a very, he's everywhere, but not just that. He knows your actions. He knows your thoughts. He knows, like, he knows everything, and he's in everything, and to what extent and how come. That's what we're going to explain now. And that understanding this will really help us feel Hashem in our daily lives, that we're never alone and that we're not suffering in vain, and anything that happens, Hashem is there. Like, there's no such a thing that Hashem's not there. Hashem is enabling things to happen and wants these things to happen because he wants us to grow from it and learn from it. Like, there's a reason for everything. Every single thing in the world is by divine providence. Everything. Even a leaf falling off a tree is by divine providence. It's Hashem planned it. There's a famous analogy of a leaf falling off a tree that the person asked the leaf, why did you fall off the tree? It's like, I don't know, ask the branch. The branch asked, why did you shake? Because the wind blew. And he is asking the wind, why did the wind blow? He's like, asked the master of the world why he made the wind blow so that the branch will shake, so that the leaf will fall. And he asked the master of the world, why did you do this? Why did you make this happen? He says there was a little leaf. There was a little worm on the leaf, and the sun was shining bright on him, and he couldn't fall asleep. So I told the wind to blow so that the branch will shake, so that the leaf will fall, and then at the end the worm could be able to fall asleep. Every single thing, yeah. But this is there's actually even a kid's book about it. But I'm saying this, and there's a song about it from Avraham Fried. But it's a famous analogy to explain that every single thing that happens is by divine providence. And we're going to learn now is really going to help us feel it, and because we're going to understand it with our mind. Like, we're going to understand, we're going to tap on it and understand as much as possible. So to understand how come Hashem knows everything in the world, we're going to take ourselves. We're going to take, first of all, an example about ourselves. There's different types of knowledge even within ourselves. So let me ask you a question. Whatever, anyone. Look at somebody next to you and tell me, do you think they're calm, or do you think that they're nervous about something?
This is pretty calm, I think.
Right. And what makes you think?
Nobody knows.
Okay, but you can see. Okay, that's true. You can't know fully. But exactly, you can still see the face expression. Okay, sometimes the face expression, if somebody would be shaking or somebody would be like, moving their feet like, or agitated, you would see that something's going on. And somebody that's like, you see on the expression of the body, you can see that somebody is relaxed or nervous. Like, there's something about, so people can express themselves. Like, so basically you have the five senses, you have body language, but you have the five senses that can help you see on the other how they're feeling or what's going on. Like, that's what we use all the time. We use our eyes, our smell, our, our intuition. Like we use different type of senses to feel what's going on around us. Now, how about, I'm asking you about yourself now. Are you calm or nervous? You don't have to tell me the truth, but what signs are you going to use to know that? Well, it's a whole different category, right? You don't need to have facial expressions or, what?
Inside.
You just know it from inside. It's something like if I'm saying, are you cold or are you hot? It's not like you just know it because it's inside of you, right? You get the idea? So there's so the way we're gonna look at it is that there's the knowledge, the internal type of knowledge, and then there's the external type of knowledge. Like I know how a person feels based on the expressions that I see, but the way I know about myself is a whole different category. I literally know because I know it's like inside of me. Like I am me, and it's me. Okay, it makes sense? Okay. Now, another example to go further into this concept is, like we know we're looking around us, and we know that there's around here, there's a wall, there's a table, there's chairs, there's different objects on the table, etc. The fact that I know what's around me, does that mean that it's a part of me? Are they existing inside of me? No, they're not inside of me. Okay, they're here before I came here, and they're here even after I leave. It has nothing to do with me. It's not a piece of me, correct? It's two separate things. There's the table and there's me, two separate things. Now, compared to that, do I know what's going on inside of my body? Do I know if I feel hot, if I feel cold, if I'm hurting, something's bothering me? Like, because so the answer is yes, because it's part of me. It's inside of my body. I feel everything that's happening to my body. If my toe would be hurting, if my shoe's too small or whatever, if something's hurting, I would feel it. So there's the internal knowledge is what's inside of me, and then there's the external knowledge. That external knowledge, basically me and that item are two separate things. Okay, and I need one of those five senses to be able to see it, to feel it, to have that knowledge. But something that's inside of me, that internal knowledge, me and that knowledge is one thing. I'm like, it's inside of me. I know it. Okay. And I don't need anything. I don't need something in between to tell me what's going on inside of me. I don't need anything. I just know. Okay. Naturally, I know what's going on inside of me. Okay, I'll tell you a very cute story about this. There was a tzaddik, his name is Moshe Leib of Sasso, and he was very famous as somebody that loves every Jew. And he was saying in this story, he's like, I learned about loving a fellow Jew from a non-Jew. I was once next to a bar, and I saw two Gentiles hugging each other. And one is, and like they were loving each other. And one is asking his friend, do you really love me? Do you really like me? And he's like, of course, for real. Like, of course I love you. Like, if you really love me, tell me what hurts me. So the friend tells me, how am I supposed to know what hurts you? Like, you didn't tell me anything. Like, how am I supposed to know what's inside of you? It's like, if you don't know on your own what hurts me inside, that means that you don't really love me. And at that point, the Jew, like this tzaddik that tells this story, he says, that's when I learned that there's that no one loves another Jew, really, unless he actually knows what he's missing. Like, you don't really love someone else if you don't know what's hurting him, what's bothering him, what he's missing. Which means that what did we see here is that when you look at this, what were they talking, those two guys? If you love someone, okay, wait, let me explain. Let me finish, and then you'll tell me if you understand. What those two people were discussing, like, do you really love me if you know what's inside of me? Basically, they were looking at it from an external perspective versus the internal perspective, which we just discussed. Okay, one said that he doesn't know where the other one hurts because on an external level, yes, I love you. But the other one was saying, 1 second, if you love me, it's got to be internal. It's got to be that you really feel what I feel. Like, it's got to be like a real feeling, like you actually are inside of me to know exactly. And that's like real love. Like that would mean that you really, really, really love me. So anyways, the lesson that the rabbi took from here is that to love a fellow Jew for real is that you really know what hurts him. You really know what he's missing. Like it's very, like you feel that close. So that's just to explain the concept of of that external knowledge versus that internal knowledge. Okay, now that you understood it nicely, we can understand what type of knowledge is Hashem. It's one of the foundational the principles of faith, that Hashem knows everything that's happening in the world, everything that we do, every place, every moment, everything. And what is Hashem using to know this? Does he use any type of tools to know everything that's going on? Does he have eyes? Does he have ears? He's not using anything. Why? Because it's him.
It's that we're him.
We are a part of him. Okay, he created us. And it's not just, we're not creations of him. We are him. The fact that he's thinking about us is what's making us constantly being created and constantly being there. His thoughts are making us alive, and he knows how we feel. He knows everything that's going on. And it's not like he needs to pay attention, or he needs, like, we're inside his body. We're inside Hashem. The whole world is an extension and a piece of Hashem. The whole world is godly. Remember, if everything is Hashem, we are, like, all these things that you see and all of us, we are part of Hashem. I mean, we know that we are, but that's what we're saying here. Just like I described to you, the person that knows what's happening inside of him. So that's how Hashem feels what's going on inside of him. Literally just like a person feels what's going on inside her body. That's how much Hashem knows everything that's happening in the world. Okay, there's another story to illustrate this, is between the real knowledge and the knowledge that's like in theory. There was a person that came once to the Maggid of Mezrich, which is the second Chabad Rebbe, which is the student of the Baal Tanya, which tonight is his birthday and Yortzeit, the Mitzel Rebbe, the second Chabad Rebbe. Somebody came to a big student once came to him, and anyways, he wanted to ask him some questions, and he was told, like, and the Rebbe said, I need to finish praying, like that's second Chabad Rebbe. I need to finish praying, and then I'll be with you. And he's waiting for him to finish praying, and it's taking him hours. He's praying for hours and hours, like, and the guy's outside waiting and waiting. And at the end, he asked him, like, what took you so long to pray? Like, when I pray, it doesn't take me that long. So, like, I also I also pray, and I think about everything I say. Like, I pray, but it doesn't take me hours and hours. So the Maggid of Mezrich told him, he explained to him, he's like, what do you do for a living? He's like, you know what? Sometimes I go to that city far away. I have to travel to Leipzig, and I buy stuff, and then I bring it here and I sell it to people, and I make profit, and that's how I make money. Like, I have a little store here, but I have to go get the stuff from a different city. So the Maggid tells him, okay, when you travel, it takes you a very long time to get there, to get the stuff and bring it. How about, and also you're not studying any Torah, you don't have time for anything because of all this traveling. How about stay at home and imagine that you're traveling. Imagine that you're getting all this merchandise, and imagine that you're bringing it back and that you're selling it and you're making profit. And then you got it, and then you're going to make profit. Like this, you're going to save so much time, and you're going to get all this, and you're not even going to waste, whatever, you're not going to waste time, and it's going to be much faster. So this man's like, come on. I didn't think you're like that stupid, like, you have to do business. You can't think about what you want. You need merchandise to sell in order to make money. Like, you have to actually go to that city to get, like, you can't just think about going to that city. You have to actually go. And the Maggid of Mezrich tells him, you know what? It's the same thing. You can think about what you want, and you can actually go there. You can actually be there. So you can actually try and reach Hashem. You can think about reaching Hashem, and when you pray, you can try and think about where you want to get to. where you can actually go there and be there. So when I pray, I am actually there. I actually go there, and that's why it takes me so long. It takes time to really be there. So that's just to point out the difference between, thinking about something and something that's actually happening. So now let's think what would happen to understand more when we're talking about the fact that Hashem knows what's going on in everything. What would happen if Hashem wouldn't know something? He wouldn't think about something that's happening. He wouldn't know about something that's happening to a person. He wouldn't know about it. So the answer is, in such a case, that person would not have existed. Literally, everything that exists, it's because Hashem knows about it, because Hashem thinks about it.
But Hashem make you feel about it. Of course, he know what's going on. He's the one who make you feel what you feel.
Yeah.
It means,
but we're talking about him knowing. We're talking about his knowledge that makes it happen.
It's happened. Of course, he knows, because if he made it happen.
But so it's impossible that something happens that Hashem doesn't know.
Because he make you
exactly. Everything that exists comes from Hashem's knowledge. It's inseparable. Like it's one. Everything is one over here. Okay. If Hashem doesn't know about something, it means that it doesn't exist. Okay. So to understand this, because it's a little bit hard for us to imagine, because for us, we're like still humans, and this is Hashem. There's a very cute example to explain this, is a dream. If you dream about a horse and a rider on a horse, and they're running really, really fast, while you're thinking about it, you can picture it happening. But the second you stop thinking about it, that horse doesn't exist at all. You see that? Like, you're not thinking about it, it doesn't exist. Yeah, but it's just to explain to you that sometimes the stopping to think actually makes it not exist. It's just a little bit of a way for us to understand how Hashem knowing something means that he makes it exist. Okay?
If he doesn't think it, it doesn't exist. If he doesn't think it, it doesn't
exactly
exist.
So the example I gave you is just an imagination, but with Hashem, it's actually real stuff. Everything that's real comes from his thought, comes from what he's thinking. Our existence literally depends on Hashem's thought, on Hashem's knowledge. Like, it's connected. Nothing can exist without Hashem's knowledge. I hope that this really empowers you to see that everything is Hashem, and everything that happens comes from Hashem. So we saw so far that when a person knows something in an encompassing way, it's not really existing. We just think about something and it's separate from the actual thing. But the Alter Rebbe here explains that when Hashem knows something, it actually penetrates the existence of every single thing. Whatever Hashem thinks, it penetrates the existence of that item. Okay. For example, if you look at planet Earth, the fact that Hashem is thinking, like, has the knowledge and thinks about the planet Earth, literally all the layers of planet Earth are existing and are penetrated with Hashem's knowledge. And the knowledge of Hashem is the source of life of every part of that planet Earth. Okay. At the same time, our world is very limited compared, that's what we're going to get to now, to Hashem is infinite. And we're not saying Hashem is coming to all these things. And Hashem is like, you're putting him in a world, and in the world, everything is like contracted. Hashem's light is completely contracted. And that's why he's explaining, that's why in the world, there's only things that are inanimate and plants that grow. That's what the actual earth is made of. It can't have enough life because Hashem is completely contracted. Okay, compared to the animals and the humans that are talking. So, anyways, but we'll explain. I'm going to read this part in the Tanya, and then we'll understand the concept of Hashem. That on one hand Hashem is infinite, but on the other hand Hashem is contracted. How they both happen at the same time. Okay. God, however, of whom it's written, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, so that it is utterly impossible for us to grasp his thought process. His, Hashem's thoughts and his mind, which knows all created beings, encompasses each and every created thing from its head, from its highest level to its end, to its lowest level, and its inside and very core, all in actual reality, and not as with the thought of mortal men. It's a whole different ballgame what happens with Hashem. For example, in the case of the orb of this earth, the planet Earth, his knowledge encompasses the entire diameter of the globe of the earth, together with all that is in it, and its deepest interior and its lowest depth, all in actual reality. For this knowledge constitutes of the vitality of the whole spherical thickness of the earth, and its creation ex nihilo means from nothing to something. However, it would not have come into being as it is now, as a finite and limited thing with an exceedingly minute degree of vitality sufficient for the categories of inorganic matter and vegetation. I told you there's like the inanimate and the vegetable, where it is not for the world being created through the many powerful contractions which have condensed the light and vitality that is closed in the orb of the earth, so as to animate it and sustain it in its finite and limited status, and is in the categories of inorganic and vegetable matter alone. So Hashem's contraction made that Hashem, like, that's why the things are so limited, and that's why they're inanimate and they're vegetables and they don't move and they don't have that much life, because there's a huge contraction that happened from infinite light of Hashem till the planet Earth. We're going to expand on this further now. So on the other hand, what we see is that even though Hashem's knowledge penetrates every single thing in the world, a world that is limited, all these things in the world are limited. At the same time, Hashem himself, the knowledge of Hashem, even though it's penetrating all this limited stuff, Hashem's knowledge stays infinite at the same time. So now let's try to understand this. If Hashem's knowledge is inside of us, does that mean that we know what Hashem knows? So no, absolutely not. What happens here is that Hashem knows us, but we don't know him. Exactly. So he sees us, but we don't see him, right? Like, and he can't be seen. Even if we know something, it doesn't mean that that knowledge is an infinite knowledge. That's because Hashem's knowledge is an infinite type of knowledge. Hashem is infinite. And it's a part of him. All of his knowledge, everything is a part of Hashem. And and inside of himself, he knows us. Inside of him, he knows us. But the fact that we can't grasp him, we are not able to grasp his knowledge. Okay, like we can't know him. We can't understand him. We can't grasp that grandiosity of how he knows everything. Like, it's not for us. We're not able to understand. And this is going to bring us to the conclusion that we came to already in last class, when we say that Hashem's light is encompassing all worlds. That comes from the Zohar, from the Kabbalah, that Hashem's light is encompassing all worlds. It doesn't mean that he's around all worlds, but it means that he contracted himself and he penetrated everything in the world. He's inside all the worlds, but because we're not able to grasp him, and because he's hidden in all this, that's why we're calling it encompassing. Encompassing in the sense of it's above our head, like we can't grasp it. That's why it's encompassing. That's why it's not inside of us, because we, the receiver, are not fully grasping it. From our perspective, we're not grasping the entirety of his infinite light. That's why it's only limited from our perspective. His light is not limited. For us, it's limited. For Hashem, his light and the way he's penetrating us and the way his knowledge is infinite. Okay, Hashem's light is in this world in an infinite way, but we are seeing it as very limited. It's concealed to us. There's a lot of curtains, we can't see it. And how is that expressed? It's expressed by Hashem's knowledge. Hashem's knowledge is a part of his infinite, like the fact that he's infinite. On one hand, Hashem's knowledge is in all the details of the world, is in everything. So everything that happens in the world comes from Hashem's knowledge. But on the other hand, we can't grasp it. On the other hand, it's limited to on our perspective. And that's why for us, from our perspective, it's encompassing. It's not, we're not seeing all of it. We're not feeling it everywhere. And Hashem is actually very hidden in our eyes. Like we don't see that Hashem is in everything. We need to really try to open our eyes. It's a lot of work. Okay. So that's where the Alter Rebbe is going to explain. Okay, so the knowledge of Hashem is part of him. And he's bringing, so now he's going to bring I'll show it to you straight here. He's bringing the words of the Rambam, Maimonides, that says, this is very interesting. I really like this part. So I want to show it to you inside here. Here. His knowledge, however, which is united with his essence and being, he's quoting from the Maimonides. He is the knowledge, he is the knower, and he is the known. Do you see that? So when you look at us, when a human being knows something, okay, you have three separate components. You have the person that knows, you have the brain that's through that the person knows, and then you have the actual thing that the person knows. And it stays as three separate things. For example, we can forget that piece of knowledge. It doesn't stay part of us, right? The knowledge can go elsewhere. The brain can go elsewhere. Like it's not connected and it's not one. As opposed to that, Hashem knows everything, and all those three things are interconnected. They're one. Hashem, who is the one that knows? It's Hashem himself. What is the knowledge? It's Hashem's knowledge. It's Hashem's wisdom. It's Hashem himself. And what is the thing that he knows? It's the world that it's his world. It's him. All these three things are fully him. It's one thing and it's completely united. We are not able to see it like that. We're not able to understand it. We're not able to see, like we're human beings. For us, everything is separate. And that's what Alter Rebbe is going to conclude this whole topic and say that on one hand, Hashem's knowledge is completely infinite and it doesn't enclose itself and doesn't get grasped in this world. Over here, it's completely limited. But on the other hand, but it's an infinite light. Just we are not seeing it. But on the other hand, Hashem is penetrating everything in this world, and everything in this world, every existence in the world, comes from Hashem's knowledge. Okay. Okay. Let me show this to you inside. I'm going to continue here. We're finishing right now, chapter 48. No, there's actually a little parenthesis that I'm going to mention to you after. Okay. So, knowing himself, as it were, he knows all creating being, though not with a knowledge that is external to himself, like the knowledge of a human being, for all of the created beings are derived from his true reality. He's explaining to you how Hashem's knowledge, everything is one. And this thing is not within the power of human being to comprehend clearly, and so on. As Rambam of blessed memory has written, that God is knowledge, knower, and known. And the scholars of the Kabbalah have agreed with this view, as it's stated in Pardes of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero of blessed memory. This is also in accord with the Kabbalah of our master, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, of blessed memory. Wait, where's the parentheses that I'm supposed to be reading after? 1 second. Yeah, I'm supposed to explain this after. Give me a second. Supposed to be a parenthesis, and I'm not seeing. Second. All this is the parenthesis. I'll explain it to you after, and I'll go back to it. This is one. Okay. Here. This knowledge, then, since it is of an infinite order, is not described as clothing itself in the orb of the earth, which is finite and limited, while God's knowledge is limitless, but as encircling and encompassing it. So it's limited, because it's for us, for our perspective, it's encompassing, okay? Even though this knowledge embraces its entire thickness and interior and in actual reality. You understand? He's saying that on one hand, it's infinite, but on the other hand, it's penetrating every single item. Thereby giving it existence ex nihilo, like on a constant basis from nothing to something. Like Hashem is constantly making everything create. As it explained elsewhere, that creation ex nihilo can take place only as a result of the encompassing light. So that light makes everything exist on a constant basis. Just want to get to my piece that I was supposed to explain. Yeah, it's here. Okay, let me explain to you this piece. Okay, so here the Alter Rebbe just wants to what he was saying, that we're saying Hashem knows, and like Hashem is the knower, he's the knowledge, and he's the known thing. And what happens is, and that's coming from the Maimonides says that, right? There was a quote from Maimonides. Now the Arizal, it's a very big Kabbalist, the Arizal, if you know, in Tzfat, he came and said, 1 second, there's a problem here. How can you say such limiting words about Hashem, who is so infinite? How can you say, like, as soon as you put words into something, it's not infinite anymore. You're saying he knows, he understands, like as if it's like he's everything. How can you just use this type of word? Like you can't say about, like you can't, like as soon as you put this type of words, you're basically making him into a smart person, into something that knows, into something that understands. And then what if like, and it's kind of contracting Hashem, and Hashem is infinite, and he didn't like it. So the Alter Rebbe comes and says they're both true. Yes, Hashem is infinite, and yes, Hashem knows and everything. What is he explaining? He's explaining that when you look at Hashem's light before it's contracted, the actual light of Hashem before the contraction is completely infinite. But when we talk about the light of Hashem after the contraction, yes, it's a light of Hashem that you can start putting into words, you can start defining, because it's contracted and then it's defined by human beings to understand as a human being. And yes, you can say that Hashem is the knower, and Hashem is the knowledge, and Hashem is also the created being. Like Hashem is everything. So basically, each one was talking about the light of Hashem at a different point. Yeah.
So you know how he said Hashem contracted at one point?
Yeah.
So that we could understand him. So before he created humans, he was not contracted. He only contracted after he created us.
Okay, let me explain to you a little bit more about this contraction. It's an excellent question. Hashem, okay, so no, yeah, because we spoke about it before. Hashem himself, okay, he's everywhere and he's everything and he's infinite, okay? Now, he did not contract himself. It's not like he left a piece of him and like, Hashem is still infinite. That's what we're trying to explain. He's still infinite, but he's trying to make us receive him. He's trying to, some parts of him, he's trying to contract so that we should be able to receive it. A very cute example that I saw about this is like when you have a very big professor that has so much knowledge and is trying to explain something to a 5-year-old. So he's gonna break it down to small little things. Yeah, you go down to the level, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have the knowledge.
So a good example of God of Hashem contracting himself for us is like him giving us the Torah, right?
Yes, yes.
Making
Everything. Hashem creating us as being, and Hashem writing everything down, all the rules, is a way of Hashem trying to help us connect to him. Hashem wants to have a connection with us, even though he's so infinite and was so limited, but he wants that connection. That's why he gave us the Torah. Exactly. Yeah. So he came down to our level because he wants that connection, but it doesn't mean that he himself is smaller. He didn't become smaller. And that's the same thing of what we're saying here right now. That on one hand, he is the same infinite, and at the same time, he penetrates every single part of the world. And from our perspective, he is not fully revealed. And from our perspective, he's not as big as he is. From our perspective, it doesn't mean that he's not. Yeah.
So like a lot of things that he does, even just on a regular daily basis, you know, that some might even consider be miracles, let's say, right? It's so that we can understand him.
The miracles that he does is
but the things that we can see. with
Yeah.
our own eyes.
Yeah, but sometimes there are miracles that we don't see.
Yeah, but sometimes there are that we do see.
Yeah.
it's like-
So whether we see or we don't see, it's our job. Hashem wants us to find. Either way. And the fact that you see means that you're seeing him. It means that you're doing your work of finding him. Some people, the famous joke of saying, Hashem, I need a parking spot. Never mind, I found one. It's because he didn't even realize the parking spot was Hashem that gave it to him. Okay, let me just show you this piece that I just explained. It was a parenthesis. It's 2 lines, but okay. So you see he's saying Rambam and then the question of the Kabbalah of the Arizal, and then he explains it. As Rambam of blessed memory wrote that Hashem is knowledge, knower, and known, the scholars of the Kabbalah have agreed with this view as is stated in Pardes of Rabbi Moshe Cordovero of blessed memory. This is also in accord with the Kabbalah of our master Rabbi Yitzchak Luria de Arizal, blessed memory. In the mystery, the doctrine of contraction and the clothing of the light in the vessels of Sfirot, as has been explained previously. Okay, so that's where he's bringing that concept, but I explained it to you. So I just wanted to show that to you. Now I'm going to summarize what we learned. You give us a lesson, I'm going to summarize the chapter. So today we learned about the knowledge of Hashem in this world, that it's different than the knowledge of a human being. Knowledge of a human being, we're encompassing a certain knowledge. It's just, in the imagination, and it's 2 separate things. But the knowledge of Hashem is encompassing, but it's literally filling up every piece of the world and making it exist. And we gave the example of Hashem being in the globe, in the planet Earth, that it literally penetrates every single detail. And Hashem is the life of every single detail. Hashem's knowledge makes it exist. And and we said that on one hand, Hashem's knowledge is part of him and is infinite, but at the same time, the world is so limited that Hashem's light is not revealed in this world. Everything is limited, and that's why we're not able to receive it, and that's why we call it an encompassing light, because it's above our head. It's too much for us to grasp. We're not seeing all of it, but it doesn't mean that Hashem's light is not infinite. Hashem's light is totally infinite. So the amazing lesson that we learned today, I think it's really, really powerful, is that we know that we understood today how much Hashem really knows everything that happens in the world. Everything that exists in the world comes from Hashem's knowledge, from Hashem's thought. And Hashem is in every place and at every moment. So from here, we can learn to have a little bit of more trust in Hashem. Sometimes we go through different difficult things and complicated things and disappointments, and sometimes we can really feel alone in all these things. And sometimes we're like, where am I going to get some strength to go through this? How am I going to manage to go through this and this? But knowing that everything is from Hashem, knowing that Hashem, feeling that Hashem is in me, Hashem is in everything, Hashem knows everything that's going on, Hashem is with me in everything. It gives us this, and it helps us having that trust in Hashem and knowing that Hashem is with us at all times, and it helps us. We're not alone, and Hashem knows. And by the way, it's one of the chapters in Tehillim, we have that a lot. Hashem, you're with me. Hashem, you're part of me. There's a famous one, the King David says, Gam ke'elech be'geit tzalmo lo irara, ki ata imadi. Even when I'm in the deepest problems, I'm not going to fear. And why? Because I know, I'm not, even if I'm in the deepest despair, I'm not going to fear. Why? Because I know you're with me. Ata imadi. That helps us not be scared that we're alone, that we're on our own. We're not in despair. Hashem is carrying us wherever he's carrying us. Hashem's choosing a path for us. And whatever he does, we trust him that it comes from him, and there's a reason for it. Even if we don't see it right away, but the trust helps us get through it. So we're finishing today chapter 49. It was a deep chapter because we talked about this contraction. It's a little bit very theoretical. Don't worry, the next chapter will be much more practical because it's going to take that and say how we're reciprocating this love to Hashem. So first we saw we had 3 classes on the chapter. In the first one, we spoke about the huge gap between Hashem's infinite light to the very limited world. And we understood that there has to be some type of huge contraction that happens from Hashem's infinite light. And that's the first type of contraction. And that light that we're perceiving is very minute, it's tiny compared to the actual light of Hashem, like it's too incomparable. We spoke about, like we did some math then to see how incomparable it is. And then we spoke about the fact that that as infinite as Hashem light is, it's still coming into this world, in this limited world. And we understood that it's not like a contraction, in the simplest meaning of its word, but it really means that it's just hiddenness. The contraction means that it's hidden from us. Hashem's light is still huge, but from our perspective, it's contracted, so we're able to see something. And it's just from us. Hashem's actual light is completely hidden, but we know that Hashem is still everywhere. That's what we're saying. Hashem's encompassing light is in everything. And we finished this whole concept today by saying that this encompassing light is in everything of the world, and Hashem's knowledge of the world really makes everything exist and is inside everything. And the fact that, and at the same time, we can't grasp it, and that's why we're calling it an encompassing light, because it's too much, like it's for us, it's not fully there. But it doesn't mean that Hashem's light is not infinite, and it's also inside every single item. So again, this chapter was how we'll understand in the next chapter how this chapter was really helping us to understand what Hashem did out of love to us and how we're going to be reciprocating that love. We're going to do that it's going to become very practical of how we're going to reciprocate, how we're going to automatically reciprocate this type of love coming from that contraction of Hashem.